Hello, I've got the assembly this week because June, as you may already know, is internationally recognised and marked as LGBTQ Pride Month. It's a time when lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender and queer people all over the world come together to raise awareness of LGBTQ people and issues and to celebrate LGBTQ lives and identities. Some of you, especially if you've seen my previous Pride Month assemblies, may also know that Pride has its roots in a riot. Patrons at the Stonewall Bar in New York were fed up of being repeatedly harassed, arrested and brutalised by police. One night they'd had enough and decided to fight back. 3 women are known to have led the resistance. They were 2 transgender women of colour, Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson, and a black lesbian, Stormé de Lavery. In a recent film about Stonewall, however, the action seems to revolve around the experiences and contribution of a white man. Hold that thought, I'll come back to it later. Pride events today are a celebration of LGBTQ people's courage, honesty and joy in living openly as themselves and as part of an inclusive society. They also serve to reject ideas or systems that see us or treat us as inferior. I've heard some people say, I support gay people, but why do they have to have a parade? There isn't a straight pride parade. And I thought of that recently when, during the Black Lives Matter protests, I heard people saying things like, I support racial equality and I really do believe that Black Lives Matter, but why do they have to break things? And don't all lives matter? For me, the answer to all those questions is the same thing. It's that we're all human, we're all important, and we all deserve to be treated with respect, to be seen, to be acknowledged. Even better, we should all be recognised and valued for the skills and the personal qualities we have, and for everything that makes each of us unique and special. So Pride is a time for LGBTQ people to remind the world that we exist. We live in a world that is, sadly, still not fair. And if you want to change that world, if you want to improve it, if you want to get stuff done, unfortunately, even today, it really helps to be a straight white man. If you're not, it can be very difficult to be recognised and to be credited with your achievements. Remember the women I told you about who kick-started the Stonewall riots, being whitewashed out of the popular version of that history in favour of a white man. And if you look at other social movements for change, you can see that there is a pattern in how these happen. In the 102 years since England started giving women the vote, gender equality has moved forward, but women still don't have equal voice, equal pay or equal power with men. In the centuries that people of colour have been fighting for their rights, we've seen the end of slavery and the end of empire, but we still see social injustice, and people from ethnic minorities often find it harder to succeed and find they're treated worse than white people. LGBTQ rights have made huge advances just recently, and into this century that's still continuing, but there are still great many cases where that isn't true and people who still really need support. Of course, people can't make these changes on their own. It's not the job of women to bring about gender equality. We need men who are vocal feminists. It's not the job of people of colour to bring about racial equality. We need white people who are willing to stand up and be actively anti-racist. And I'm going to be doing my best on that one. And it's not the job of LGBTQ people to bring about an end to homophobia, biphobia or transphobia. We need help We need our allies to stand up and be by our side as we try and work to end prejudice and discrimination. In each of those cases, people put in huge amounts of work in terms of campaigning, awareness raising, letter writing. There were rallies and marches, speeches, placards, t-shirts, slogans, and yet we're still not there. If the ongoing violence against black people that we've seen protested recently and the riots that have occurred as a response show us anything, it's that people riot when they have been trying for years, decades, sometimes even centuries, to effect change in their lives, and yet they're still living lives that are not as good or as safe as those of the majority. Pride is a time to remember that you don't have to be the majority to matter. As one of the activists who was there at that first riot in 1969 that spawned the Pride movement said, we changed from, please let us be part of middle-class America, to we are who we are and we're not going to apologise anymore. I think all of us could do with a little bit of that courage. On a rather more individual note, I know that a lot of people have found lockdown and the coronavirus pandemic difficult. A lot of us have found it hard. Many of us have felt a bit low, frightened, sad, anxious, and I know some people have found it hard to talk to their friends and their family about how they're feeling because they don't want to worry people, they don't want to upset people, they don't want to be a burden. I think the lesson of Pride here is that sometimes it's okay for a minority to be the focus of attention when their needs are not being met. Sometimes it is okay for it to be all about you, because you're important. You deserve to be seen, you deserve to be listened to, you deserve to be cared about. You matter.